World War I, often referred to as the Great War, was one of the most devastating conflicts in human history. Fought primarily in Europe between 1914 and 1918, the war involved over 30 nations and reshaped the political, economic and cultural landscape of the 20th century. Its legacy continues to influence global geopolitics, military strategy and international relations. The outbreak of World War I was not caused by a single event, but rather a complex web of political, military and ideological factors that had been brewing for decades. By the early 20th century, Europe was a cauldron of nationalism. Newly unified Germany was asserting itself economically and militarily, while the Austro-Hungarian and Ottoman empires struggled to maintain control over ethnically diverse populations. In the Balkans, Slavic nationalism clashed with imperial ambitions, especially as Serbia sought to unite Slavic peoples under its leadership. At the same time, imperial rivalries fueled tensions among the great powers. Britain and France had vast colonial empires, while Germany sought to expand its influence overseas. This competition created friction and fueled a growing sense of mistrust. Europe was divided into two major alliance systems, the Triple Entente, which included France, Russia and Britain, and the Triple Alliance, consisting of Germany, Austria, Hungary and Italy. These alliances were intended as deterrents, but ironically made war more likely by promising support if conflict broke out. The arms race further escalated tensions. Industrialization allowed nations to produce weapons on an unprecedented scale, and the development of new military technologies, including dreadnought battleships and rapid-firing artillery, created a climate where war seemed not only inevitable, but winnable. The immediate cause of World War I was the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria-Hungary by Gavrilo Princip, a Bosnian Serb nationalist, on June 28, 1914. This assassination triggered a diplomatic crisis. Austria-Hungary, with German support, issued an ultimatum to Serbia. When Serbia's response failed to satisfy Vienna, Austria-Hungary declared war. Due to the existing alliance system, what began as a regional conflict quickly escalated into a global war. World War I is remembered for its brutal trench warfare and stalemates, especially on the Western Front. The military strategies employed during the war were often outdated, failing to adapt to the modern technologies of war. On the Western Front, running from the North Sea to Switzerland, soldiers dug extensive networks of trenches. Life in the trenches was horrific. Soldiers faced mud, rats, disease, and the constant threat of enemy fire. Battles often gained only a few miles of ground at great human cost. This form of warfare led to prolonged engagements with little strategic advantage. The development of machine guns, barbed wire and artillery created a deadly battlefield environment where offensive tactics frequently failed. The Eastern Front, where Germany and Austria-Hungary fought Russia, saw more mobile warfare due to the larger, less industrialized terrain. While trench warfare was less prevalent, battles were equally brutal and led to significant casualties and civilian suffering. Fighting also extended to Africa, the Middle East and Asia, involving colonial troops and reshaping colonial relations. The Ottoman Empire joined the Central Powers, and the Middle Eastern theatre saw iconic campaigns such as those led by T.E. Lawrence, also known as Lawrence of Arabia, in support of the Arab Revolt. While the war spanned hundreds of engagements, several key battles defined its character and outcome. The Battle of Verdun was one of the longest and costliest engagements of the war, lasting over 300 days. German forces launched an offensive to bleed France white. The French, under General Philippe Pétain, successfully held the line at great cost. Verdun became a symbol of French resilience and determination. Fought primarily between British and German forces, the Battle of the Somme is notorious for its first day, which saw nearly 60,000 British casualties. It was intended to relieve pressure on the French at Verdun, but ended in a bloody stalemate, highlighting the futility of trench warfare. The Allied attempt to open a sea route to Russia through the Dardanelles met fierce Ottoman resistance. The Gallipoli Campaign was a costly failure for the Allies, but became a defining moment for national identities in Australia and New Zealand, commemorated as Anzac Day. Also known as the Third Battle of Ypres, Passchendaele was marked by horrific conditions, including thick mud that swallowed men and horses. Despite enormous casualties and minimal gains, the battle exemplified the attritional nature of World War I. This was the largest and one of the final offensives of the war, led by American and French forces. It played a significant role in breaking the German lines and pushing the Central Powers toward an armistice. Initially neutral, the United States entered the war in 1917. Several factors led to this decision. Germany's unrestricted submarine warfare, which included the sinking of ships like the Lusitania carrying American citizens, provoked outrage. Then there was the Zimmermann telegram, a secret proposal from Germany to Mexico, encouraging an alliance against the United States. This was intercepted and published, causing further alarm. Additionally, the United States had strong financial ties with the Allies and stood to lose significantly if they were defeated. American troops, known as the American Expeditionary Forces, or AEF, under General John J. Pershing, bolstered the exhausted Allied forces. Their involvement shifted the balance of power and helped bring the war to an end. World War I was the first industrialized war, and innovations in weaponry and tactics changed the nature of combat. Tanks, first introduced by the British in 1916, helped break through enemy trenches. Aircraft were used for reconnaissance and later as fighters and bombers. Poison gas, used by both sides, inflicted gruesome injuries and deaths with chemical weapons like chlorine and mustard gas. German U-boats or submarines threatened Allied shipping and were a significant factor in bringing the United States into the war. World War I was, a total war, meaning entire societies were mobilized. Civilians contributed through labor, production and rationing. Governments introduced conscription, censorship and propaganda to maintain morale and control the narrative. Women entered the workforce in large numbers, taking on roles traditionally held by men. Their contributions laid the groundwork for social changes, including women's suffrage in several countries after the war. By late 1918, the Central Powers were crumbling. Germany faced economic collapse, social unrest, and military mutiny. Austria-Hungary and the Ottoman Empire disintegrated. Facing defeat on multiple fronts and internal revolution, Germany agreed to an armistice on November 11, 1918. Signed on June 28, 1919, the Treaty of Versailles officially ended the war. It imposed severe penalties on Germany: loss of territories, such as Alsace-Lorraine, to France, limitation of military capabilities, the war guilt clause blaming Germany for the war, and reparations payments to the Allies. These harsh terms caused resentment in Germany and are often cited as a contributing factor to the rise of Adolf Hitler and the outbreak of World War II. World War I had profound and lasting impacts on the world. Human cost: over 16 million people died and 21 million were wounded. The war left deep psychological scars and memorials in every corner of Europe. Political changes: the war led to the fall of monarchies in Russia, Germany, Austria-Hungary and the Ottoman Empire. The Russian Revolution ushered in the Soviet Union. New nations: the map of Europe was redrawn and new countries such as Czechoslovakia, Yugoslavia and Poland emerged. League of Nations, an international organization, was created to prevent future conflicts, though it ultimately failed to stop the rise of fascism in the 1930s. Cultural shifts: the disillusionment and trauma of war influenced art, literature and philosophy, giving rise to movements like modernism and the lost generation. World War I marked a turning point in world history. It ended centuries-old empires, redrew national boundaries, and introduced modern warfare on a massive scale. Though the war was meant to be the war to end all wars, its aftermath laid the foundation for even greater global conflict just 2 decades later. Understanding the causes, conduct, and consequences of World War I is essential not only for historians, but for anyone seeking to comprehend the origins of our modern world. Please like and subscribe.